Bob, always good talking to you. Thanks for coming on halftime today. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Good. Ready for a long drive? And are you guys drive? That is a long drive. I mean, and especially the last hour and a half from Birmingham to Auburn. It's almost like driving all the way to California.
Well, we're flying and driving. We're flying to Atlanta, and then we'll be driving over to Auburn from there. I think it's about 90 minutes or something like that.
Bob, in the series history, in these next 2 weeks, you get teams that Arkansas has struggled against in the last dozen years, but the series are completely different. And the idea that Arkansas has lost 9 of 11 to Auburn, and most of those games have been blowout losses. The A&M series has been so frustrating because you walk out of AT&T Stadium thinking, how did we let that one get away? It's a game Arkansas should have won. I don't know if I expect a blowout tomorrow against Auburn, but that's the way this series has gone.
Yeah, I think it'll be a close game. I think Auburn's a slight favorite, probably because they're at home. I kind of see it as a pick-em game. It's a game both teams really need because, Auburn's already lost at home to Cal. Arkansas let one get away at Oklahoma State. They both have, a lot of tough SEC games coming up. So I'm sure both teams and fan bases are looking at this as, oh, yeah, this is a game we can win. This is a game we should win. This is a game we're going to win, and it'll help get our season back on track in the SEC opener. It's probably a bigger game for Auburn because they're at home, but you look at the Arkansas's remaining schedule, especially in February, they'll have so many tough games coming up. This would just be a huge game to get. And then they would, if they did get it, they'd have some momentum to go into the A&M game with. It's technically a road game, but obviously a neutral site. But you just feel like these next two SEC games, Auburn and A&M, they're among the most, on paper anyway, the most winnable of these SEC games. And so if Arkansas is going to have a shot to go to a bowl game, they really need to get one of these. And two would be really good if they could do that.
No, I'm with you. I think this could be the biggest game and kind of deciding how your season's going to go. Do you think one of the keys, if I was to say it could be as simple as who wins the turnover battle, could win this game?
Well, yeah. I mean, the statistics, I don't know exactly what they are, but yeah, the team that wins the turnover battle wins the vast majority of the time, especially if you do it like what Oklahoma State did, Arkansas 3-1. That just goes to show you how big turnovers are because Arkansas outgained Oklahoma State by so many yards and had so many big plays, but yet they basically set up 18 points, I think it was, for OSU with those turnovers. One of them was a pick six. So, I would say whoever wins the turnover battle would win the game. Obviously, there are other things about getting pressure on a quarterback, making a second start for Auburn, Hank Brown, and Arkansas having a strong running game. Taylor Green, doing better in the passing game than he did last week. But, yeah, turnover margin's got to be one of the biggest indicators of wins and losses, I would think.
I know you wrote about Brown, the quarterback that we're going to see on Saturday, and he played for Trent Dilfer for a year in high school. I think he played for him before he actually started, but this is somebody that he really didn't play a lot of football in high school. He didn't start until his senior year. Obviously, he's talented, had a great game the week before, but I would imagine Arkansas is going to try to find a way to make him uncomfortable, and the way to do that is to stop the run, Bob.
Yeah, I mean, he had a very impressive first start against New Mexico, and obviously, I think we can all agree Arkansas is better than New Mexico. And, I know Arkansas didn't play well last week. Auburn, they gave up quite a few yards to the Lobos, so I think both teams will be more dialed in this week, and SEC opener and all that. But, Jarquez Hunter seems like he's been at Auburn forever. It's his fourth year, which in this NIL transfer portal era, that is forever, You think about how many four-year players Arkansas or anybody else has had. It's not Arkansas, it's everybody. And so, guys either leave for the NFL, they leave for other portal opportunities, or maybe they're asked or suggested they leave or whatever. But so Hunter's been there a long time. He had a big season last year, had a big game against Stars, over 100 yards rushing, and he's a veteran guy, and they're like Arkansas. They revamped their offensive line, some transfers. They recruited Fernando Carmona very hard, who decided to come to Arkansas and basically cancel the visit to Auburn. So yeah, if Arkansas could make them one-dimensional and put some heat on Hank Brown, which they really have not been able to get a lot of heat on the quarterback. We'll see what Travis Williams, the defense coordinator, might have up his sleeve to do that because, Hunter, if Hank Brown's at Auburn, that he's good, right? They don't bring in bad players, but for redshirt freshman, I think it'll only be his fourth game and his second start. You feel like, Arkansas could do some things to confuse him and make it tough on him.
Bob, how much do you think that, Hugh Freeze was at Liberty, he comes in and whoops us, then last year they whoop us. What do you think Sam Pittman feels? Do you think it's just a bad matchup as a competitor? Do you think Sam wants this game a little bit more knowing that, that Liberty loss is like a top 10 worst loss in Arkansas history, how bad that was, and then last year Hugh Freeze comes and slaps you around. Do you think he has any type of, competitiveness in him?
I'm sure he does, and I don't know. Sam spoke very respectfully of Hugh Freeze, and I don't doubt that sincere. Hugh Freeze has a really good record. But I was looking at this. Hugh Freeze is like 111-55. He's 8-8 at Auburn. Lost at home to Cal, lost at home to Mexico. This year, lost at home to Mexico State last year. After, as you know, it slapped Arkansas around pretty good. And that heartbreaker to Alabama, where it's like, how did they lose this game on that long pass, at the end? And so he hasn't exactly torn it up. 8-8, that's not what he expected. That's not what Auburn expected. That's kind of Brian Harsin territory for Auburn, right? And so Hugh Freeze probably needs this game in a big way. And he has, but I think when he was at Ole Miss, he was maybe 2-3 at Arkansas. You remember that 30-0 win in the lousy weather in Fayetteville. Perfect against Arkansas, but you're right. He has the whip coming into Liberty. It's funny, Liberty was ranked that game, but they were like a 2-touchdown underdog, and we found out later KJ was banged up. But, Hugh Freeze had some big games in Fayetteville. But, this Arkansas team, Sam said himself, they've played better on the road the last couple of years. So maybe it sounds crazy, but maybe going to Auburn will be better. Sam has one win over Auburn. It was, and we all know in 2020, I'm not trying to carry water for Arkansas, but essentially the officials took that game away from Arkansas with a bad call at the end. So Arkansas should be 2-0 at Auburn if you're saying Freeze. And so maybe getting away and going on the road and kind of, everybody banding together, maybe that will be good. But, yeah, I'm sure that loss, a lot of different players on both sides, but I'm sure you could be like that at home, especially after such a promising win at Florida. I think people were feeling excited about the program, and then Auburn comes in there and just throws cold water and all that. So, yeah, especially if you played for Arkansas last year, you feel like you owe these guys.
Maybe being away from home these next 2 weeks will help a little bit. Although, then again, Arlington is a different thing. But even Freeze pointed it out in his Monday presser, Bob, that this team plays well on the road for Sam Pittman. It's a defining characteristic of this team, but that also goes along with the other side of that. If there's going to be yin, then there's yang. They haven't really played very well at home since. In 21 they played well at home. Lost an Auburn game lost to an Auburn team that you probably should have beaten, but man, just rubbed Ole Miss's face in it, destroyed Mizzou, beat Texas that year at home. Since that Mizzou game, though, Bob, it just has not been a team that has played very well at home. I can't put my finger on it. You could say talent can be an aspect of it too, but last year they just played so much better on the road.
Well, yeah, especially if they go to Florida. I know that wasn't Steve Spurrier or Urban Meyer's Gators, but Arkansas never wanted the swamp and went down there and changed coordinators, and that was a really impressive win to me, beating Florida like that. They had the lead early and lost it, and then came back and won in overtime, and then you felt like, well, maybe they're set up here for a strong finish and still get to a bowl game because we knew they had Florida International coming in, and then they had Auburn and Missouri, good teams, but Missouri ended up having a really good year. Auburn kind of, after beating Arkansas, they just they didn't win another game. They kind of fell apart, but yeah, Arkansas just not played well at home, and that's disappointing to them. They had a really big crowd considering it was against UAB. I think that probably speaks to all the season tickets they sold for all those big SEC games later in the year. But Arkansas kind of laid an egg last week, but the one saving grace was they won the game.
Bob, we're in a place here where Tennessee is putting a 10%, what was the term, talent fee on their tickets for next year. We saw Oklahoma State try to put the QR codes on the back of the helmets for NIL purposes. Everybody's getting trying to be really creative with how you're able to end up filtering money into players' pockets. And we heard this morning from Hunter Yurachek that the logos on the football field for Tyson Foods and for Walmart, that I don't know the percentage, but a lot of that is going right to NIL. Universities are getting very creative as to how they're trying to find ways to get talent to their teams here these days, Bob. And I mean, it's separate from talking about what's going on as far as this season is concerned, but when you read about these things, I mean, sooner or later, Arkansas may end up doing the same kind of idea, 10%, talent fee on tickets. Maybe that's the kind of thing that a lot of schools do.
Well, and that's a way to obviously generate revenue. It's actually not a bad idea. I guess you could, but probably before I did something like that, if it were me, I'd probably send out some kind of survey to my season ticket holder and say, look, this is our plan. This is what we're going to do. It's going to increase your tickets by blah, blah, blah. Please, how do you feel about that? And you can respond, I understand. You have my full support. I'm not going to get season tickets. I'm never coming to another game, whatever the choices are. But I think it's good to get some feedback from your fan base. I also think fans appreciate being part of the process, at least checking with them, if you're going to do something like that. Or if you decide to do it, really go into a good explanation for why it's so important. And it's hard, actually Tennessee, that's a pretty good idea, right? And then, you watch these NBA games and you see the uniforms with the logos on them, like what the OKC has, the loves on it, right? And you see the other stuff. So I think that's, I know some people, purists, are really upset by that, but it's like, well, that's helping put money in the players' pockets, and maybe keeping ticket prices down a little bit. And because we know ticket prices for pro sports, college sports, whatever, they're getting higher just like every other thing you pay for these days, and whatever entertainment and groceries or whatever. But that would maybe be the next thing would be like patches on uniforms or even helmets or something. I mean, some people might be turned off by that, but I think these days, if you're a college administrator, you got to think about what can we possibly do to make more money.
Bob, we'll leave it there. Always appreciate you hopping on with us. Safe travels to Auburn, and we'll see you on the plains.
Okay, you guys take care.
Thanks, Bob.
BetOnline is your #1 source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.